Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 87. I am your host, Barney Smith of storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and award-winning, I'm going to stick to that, comic book writer, J.D. Calderon. J.D., how you doing?
I'm good, Barney. How you been? Listen, I can't complain.
Yeah.
You know, the skies are blue. It's kind of coolish here in New York, so which is kind of surprising. And everything's fine. You know, it's one of those things. I would like to complain, but I really have no cause to.
Your gratitude list is a lot longer than your complaint list, I guess, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, because as we were mentioned before we went on the air, I've been following your work for a while now. When we had your partner Daphne on a couple times and talk about Tall Tales and stuff, and I really fell in love with Tall Tales, and I had a great time, really great time, following that and reading that. But you're here not to talk about. We can talk about Tall Tales, but you're here to talk about your latest Kickstarter project from the Oswald Chronicles.
Yes.
Which is we're just passing through issues 1 through 4, correct?
Correct.
Good. I'm excited about that. I'm excited because now I just started looking at the Oswald Chronicles. And so for maybe the 2 or 3 people in the world that don't know J.D. Calderon that are a part of this.
2 or 3 billion.
Because you've been writing indie comics now for well on 20 years.
Yeah, a bit longer than that. We started self-publishing in '92.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So 29 years then.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like they say, the '90s is not 10 years ago. Right? You said episode 87. I was like, that was a good year.
That was a good year. Exactly. It's like, when you hear, I got really angry when I noticed that someone said they're playing oldies music and it was 90s music. I'm like, that's not oldies music.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
New kids these days. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But let's chat about a bit before we jump in. Kind of give people a bit of a background on how you got into writing comics.
Okay. Well, like most people, I started reading at a very early age. I was reading, I don't know, 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever. But I started writing probably around the age of 8. So, from there, it gestated into writing comics, right? At around the age of 12. Kept going, met some friends in junior high school and high school. I met one friend, I used to draw, I used to illustrate. I was practicing like everybody else at that early age. I met a friend, completely annihilated any dreams I ever had of becoming an illustrator. But I said I could still write, so I kept writing. So, but it was a good thing. It was a preferred way. It was a preferred path.
Right.
So, zip ahead. Met some friends of friends, and they introduced me to a bunch of artists. One of them was Daphne. Formed a company called Golden Realm Unlimited. It was myself. We were very young. We were like in our early 20s, like late teens, early 20s. So we created these books. We had something called Revelation Saga. We had Dreamweavers. We had Tall Tales, which is still alive, which is a good thing. Dreamweavers. Hopefully, I could bring that one back. That's what I actually want to bring back. We had Reaver, Security Agenda. We had Starpoint, American Justice. All these crazy titles, right? And I was writing. I would meet an artist, and I'd be like, "Really? You want to do a comic? I got one for you." Because I was just insane. I was a young kid, a lot of energy. You're like, you do all this stuff. So the only problem was that we were producing annuals. So we would set out on this course, and Tall Tales, the first issue would come out in '92, and then we had one in '93, and then we had one in '94. Not necessarily the best way to make a business. So, we had to stop that. And then, a few years later, one of the guys I was working with, Matt Lunsford, he got a position over at Central Park Media, and he was doing some adult comics. And I remember when he first told me about it, I looked down my nose at him. I was like, how dare you even bring this into my presence, right? And then about 6 months afterwards, he's like, listen, they're looking for writers. And I was like, throw my name in the hat. And I was just like, and so I ended up writing some adult comics, but that also turned out, we ended up, I wrote like one issue of Ixter 3. The only reason that happened, and it was a shame because it didn't sell as well. So they canceled it after issue 2, and I got only one issue in. But what can one do? Then we did Tenchi Muyu, which was based on a 90s anime series, and that was just regular anime. There's no adult stuff in there. It was just a lot of fun action adventure stuff. We did a 6-issue limited series of that. My only regret of that is that there was never a trade put out. That's the only regret I ever have about that. I did a few other things. I lived on that for 2 or 3 years. Which was cool as a professional, and I actually lived off of my earnings. But it taught me something important. I don't like working for anyone. I don't like creatively. I don't like pitching to people. I don't like going to an editor and saying here are my 9 pitch plots. Which one do you like? So we'll work with this one. Take this one or whatever. And you get that. I just didn't care for it. I didn't. And I'm not one to schmooze. I mean, I'll schmooze, but I'm not one to like sit in a bar. I don't drink alcohol. Right. So it's like I'm gonna go to a bar and buy you a drink, and I'm gonna watch you stare at it while I beg for a job. I'm like, nah, it's all right. So yeah, so I gave that up. During this time, we had Tall Tales was running a furlough, and it ran 60 issues. At one point, we were the longest running because furlough was a monthly anthology that ran. It was like a furry anthology run out of Radio Comics by Ellen Winkler. Great lady, great company, a lot of fun, and we were in there for a long time. One of the things that a lot of people, one particular fan told us, he said reading Tall Tales 8 pages at a time was like watching Lord of the Rings 5 minutes at a time. So yeah, and then somewhere in between me writing professionally, I came up with the Oswald Chronicles sometime, I guess around 93, 94, 95, somewhere in that area. And it was basically just a release because I was writing in prose. I didn't have an artist to work with, so I said, I'll just write in prose. This will just let me work out that muscle, and I just started writing. So, and that was it. And what I was doing was as a series of short stories, right? So that you didn't need to rely on any of the other stories to read any one story. So, but as things happen, right? Oswald wasn't supposed to be the character he became. He was just supposed to be like my crypt keeper, right? Oh, so okay. He was supposed to be the person who tells the tale of other people. Okay. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, because I had all of these strange fantasy stories I just wanted to tell with like fairies and goblins and all this other stuff. And I was like, all right. So and then, but of course Oswald, he had very strong personality. He ended up taking over the story. He was like, my name is on the title. I'm taking over, buddy. It's mine. Yeah. So as some characters will do, they'll reach out to you. They'll be like, okay, well, this is the one that speaks to me the most. So this is where it's going to go. So yeah, so the series ended up becoming just that. And that's why the series is a little disjointed. All right. When people read it, they're like, where do I begin? And I'm like, sit there and I'm like, that's a good question. And I ended up answering that question probably about 10 years ago. I wrote a story called My First Day. And that story is the very first issue, more or less, right? That's the first story. That's him as in his genesis, where he meets a young girl and she teaches him how to read, she teaches him how to write, and she teaches him arithmetic, and she gives him his name. So then we move on to from there, and I wrote the second story, which is Passing Queens and Making Homes. Okay. And yeah, and then that's the second story. And technically the one that we're on now is the third story. We were just passing through, and this is where he learns magic, where he officially learns magic. Where and
so My Time with Clive and Fallen Gods, where does that rank on?
Oh, that ranks way further up.
Okay.
Yeah, because Oswald's life it's set in 3 stages, right? So we have his first life, we have his second life in dream, and then we have his third life where he's resurrected. Okay. So he's murdered at some point, and then he's resurrected. That's his third life. That's the one I'm currently working on now. So okay. Yeah. So, but with his first life, which is what we're dealing with now, we were just passing through. This is very early on in his life cycle. Okay. Yeah, and then eventually he gets into a self-induced coma, and he's asleep for 2 weeks, and he did that to go into dream. right? So he goes into dream, and he, on our plane of existence, he's here. He's asleep for 2 weeks. In their plane of in dream, he's there for 80 years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and during that time, he becomes an emperor, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a battle mage. Yeah, he becomes all those things. Yeah, and then when he returned, and the thing that's interesting and very disorienting for Oswald is when he wakes up, because the name of the story is called "I Was There and I Was There and I Remember." Okay, so he was there and he remembers everything. It's not like when we go to sleep, we might remember snippets, but we don't remember the whole story.
Right.
You understand? Maybe sometimes you'll get one night where you'll remember, oh wow, I got the whole thing, and some people jot it down, but you never actually ever remember the whole thing. Right. He remembers everything. Okay, so he has this 80-year knowledge of what happened to him. So he comes back a vastly different person than when he went in. So imagine going in as like an 18-year-old and coming out with someone who's 80 plus years old, right? With vast amount of knowledge of magic lore, so on and so forth. So yeah, he comes out a vastly different person, but he's initially led to believe that it was just dream and it wasn't real. But although he feels differently, and one of the things he does is he suppresses that. So then that adds to further conflict later on, because the character Oswald, he's sometimes been accused of being was that Gary Stu, right? Or was it Deus Ex Machina, right? So he's a little too powerful. In the end, he is ridiculously powerful. But there's a reason for that. It's like he's not that just for no reason. And also the thing is he didn't just magically appear with his knowledge base. He had to learn it over years and years and years and years. What he would do is when he was the emperor, he had a massive library that's available to him, magic. He would go in there and he would lock himself in a room and he would freeze time while he's in that room. And while he's doing that, at the moment he freezes time, if he's in a state where he doesn't need to, like he's not hungry or he's not, he's already gone to the bathroom and everything's set, he's like that throughout the entire time that he's there. So wow. he would stay in that bubble, what would be a month. And then he would come out and everybody think he's just gone for an hour, and he did this for years. So
it's technically more than 80 years then.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's probably a few centuries old, if not older. Okay. Wow. But that's just him studying and practicing magic. Right. So it's not that he's just appeared with these powers. No, he's studied. He's done all these things. So, and he was a huge battle mage. And like I said, because there's a lot of resentment in him later on. We'll see that later in his second life and definitely in his third life, where he realizes that dream wasn't what is an actual real place. Some of his children survived some of the acts he had to do. He destroyed a city, because he was fighting a renegade god, and they're just acts he had to perform that he didn't want to do, but he had to save portions of his own people. Right. And he finds out later on that some of his kids are alive, and it causes a big I guess fissure between him and his friends in the real world. Because what happened was they were going into dream, raising these armies, attacking his people, trying to get him away from them. So because there was this whole plot to keep him, it's very convoluted, it's very complicated. So there are these elder gods who are trying to keep him asleep, right, so that his real body would die and he would be less of a challenge to them.
Okay.
In reality, right. So if he's stuck in dream, he's lost there, but in reality, he was a real issue. Right. So, but what they just made it worse for themselves because they gave him this venue to become older and wiser and smarter, and more powerful because of it. And so they ended up just screwing themselves over by doing that, because he eventually wakes up and like I said, he has this vast knowledge base.
Wow.
So yeah.
So you have, because looking at your history, So this is the fourth compilation piece for Oswald Chronicles that is available.
Right. Yes. So there's Passing Queens. Well, there's technically I've just smashed it all together. My First Date, which is a one shot, is a 24-page comic.
Right.
I mashed it together with Passing Queens and Making Homes.
Okay.
That's technically the first 8 issues of his life.
Okay.
Then I have We Were Just Passing Through. This is the next 4 issues of his life. So there's that. Then you're gonna see also My Time with Clive.
Yeah.
That's when he's in Dream. He's in Dream he discovers where his power comes from.
Okay.
Because the Calcians, those are the guys who teach him magic. This other race that we see and We Were Just Passing Through. There's a cost to casting spells. You just can't create energy and not take energy from someplace else.
Right.
So in Dream, he discovers where his power source comes from. It leaves him very disillusioned, and it leaves him, he's very despondent for a little while. So he ends up taking like a 6-year walkabout in Dream. My Time with Clive is the end of that walkabout, 6 months of his life. And it's with this baby, giant angel babe, called Clive. And Clive he's just a giant baby. If you scroll down, there might be a picture of him. There he is. There you go. That's Clive. So he's a Cyclops angel babe. And Oswald when he first runs across Clive, he's captured and he's enslaved by some demons. Oswald frees him and promises to find his parents, and that's what these 7. And through this story, we encounter a bunch of other stories before we get to that point. So this particular story that you're scrolling through is a very funny one. It's it was a writer's prompt that I once heard, and I just laughed when I heard it. It was like, what if Cthulhu met hobbits? So I put it in an Oswald story. So
that's awesome.
So I just thought it was funny. I was just like, yeah, okay, let's do that one. And then I have a few other crazy stories. I have a tribute to although he's not popular these days, Warren Ellis's Authority. Not Authority, Planetary.
Okay.
Like I said, Warren Ellis is not too popular these days. He did some bad things that they.
Oh yeah.
He needs to chill, that guy. But he's written some great stuff, and I'm not going to discount that. Planetary is one of like my all-time favorite like comic books.
Right.
But there's stuff he did that I did a tribute, like a small tribute to that, and there's that, and there's the last 2 issues where that comes to culmination, and then he returns back to his family. Oswald, he goes back to his empire, and then he has to deal with a whole bunch of stuff. So it's a long story. I have I think I'm around 1,300 pages in.
Wow.
To Oswald, just comics. And I'm figuring I probably got another 1,300 pages before I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, if even that. I mean, we're talking probably about 75 books, maybe.
Wow. So how much? You have. So I guess my question, as a comic book writer,
mm-hmm.
It sounds as though you're kind of go in between both, because the canned question is, do you find the character first and write the world around her, or do you have the world first and write the character? You can find the characters in that world. It seems as though you're kind of doing both at the same time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. When I first came up with Oswald, Daphne disagrees with me wholeheartedly. This is how it happened. We were taking a walk through Manhattan, and we were past it. We were going from east side to west side, and we're walking down from east side to west side. We're walking across Park Avenue. Park Avenue has these meridians, they're called malls, and they have like these huge flower beds that are taken care of by these nice, massive banks, corporations that live all across these two. These are the two. If you walk down the street, it's the most manicured street in all of Manhattan, because it's all banks.
Right.
The sidewalks are clean, and I mean, when I say clean, I mean power wash clean.
Yeah.
Okay, it's beautiful. But money. So yeah, it's gonna be there. So there are these malls, and Oswald lives on one. He lives with Diane and Ordith. Diane is she's a fairy. Ordith is a troll. Diane represents the court of Seelie, which is the fairies. So she represents light. Ordith represents the unseelie. He's a troll. He represents the darkness. He only comes out at night. She only comes out during the daytime. The two of them can only meet during dusk and dawn, right? During that twilight hour thing. Sometimes Diane will come out at night. She'll have to be covered up because what happens is if she comes out during the nighttime, she like glows like a huge light bulb and everybody can see her. Ordith is a troll. He turns into stone if the sunlight hits him, but he also has this thing where he can summon a shadow that he can enshroud over himself. So he can come out in the sunlight sometimes, but it's risky for him. So he doesn't like doing it. But those are his two guardians. They're there, and the guardian is two ways. They're there to protect Oswald, but their mission is also to destroy him if he ever gets out of hand. Okay? Because there have been entities, because he is a mouse. He is an actual mouse who was given sentience, but he doesn't know why. And there have been other creatures like him. He eventually discovers, I'm forgetting his name, but he was a raven that also had this power in it. And I eventually explained that story too, about the whole thing. Yeah, it gets crazy and complicated. So you know.
So talk to us a bit about this latest Kickstarter here. You have just passing through, and as you said, this takes place on the dream chapter of his.
No. This is his first life. This is
first life. Okay.
Yeah, first life. He's all in New York City. He's in Manhattan. He's having not so good of a time with all these crazy Calcians. That's what they're called. They're Calcians. There's two races involved. One is Calcians and the other one is Grogs.
Okay.
These two races were in, I guess what we would refer to as the continental United States or in North and South America, long before man ever showed up.
Okay.
So once they saw man coming, the two races were always at war, but they came together and they said, listen, if we don't do something, we're going to get destroyed. These creatures are too big for us to deal with. There's too many of them coming. So what are we going to do? So the two races got together and they got all their most powerful sorcerers together, and they created an item, right, that would make them all invisible to mankind.
Okay.
The fairy, the Seelie, and the unseelie, they have their glamour, so that's what does it for them. But
Right.
these guys run on a completely different system. So this item, this stone, the Calcians have it, and they have it in a vault.
Okay.
But there's also a special key. That vault can't just be open. They can't open it. The Calcians can't open it. But the key was given to the Grogs. That's the agreement. Calcians have control of the item. They have control of the key.
Okay.
So, the only way they could ever, if they needed to get to it, they have to come to an agreement, and both parties have to be there to do it. So the Grogs, the Calcians end up finding out, the Grogs have, we know where the key is. So, of course, despite how well things are going in anyone's life and anyone's country, there's always some dude saying, well, we could be doing a little bit better. Let's go steal the key.
Right.
So that's what happens is this small group of Calcians were misled by some of their leadership, and they steal this key. They get it away. And the Grogs, of course, they're not just going to take it. They gather their forces and they go after them. And they gather a lot of forces. It's not like a small little thing. This is serious for them. Because they're afraid that, if the Calcians get in there, they'll remove their portion where they'll be seen by man and it'll be wholesale slaughter. It'll just be everybody like, oh, look, what's this little frog type guy? Let's pick him up and, dissect him. So, that's their ultimate fear.
Right.
So they go on the warpath, and this small troop, probably about 60, 70 Calcians, ends up on Oswald's Mall. This has, a few different things that happen. Is that one, it introduces the Calcians to Oswald because they didn't know he was there. Because the fairies, the Fae, the Seelie and the Unseelie, they were keeping him hidden. Because they don't want anybody to know he's there, right? Because he's a pool of magic. And the Calcians know what he is. and they meet him. They start talking to him. They're like, "Oh, okay, we know what you are," and they introduce him to magic. And they start teaching him, like they give him books on structured magic and how on the way they do it. Their science is magic.
Okay.
So they start teaching him that sort of thing. So he starts learning from books and things. So that's the whole thing with this story. And then there's like a whole bunch of this battles and wars and all that stuff. So a lot of fun stuff.
So if you're having some folks that are just first kind of discovering the Oswald Chronicles, is this itself kind of a standalone story that will they understand? Okay.
Oh yeah, there is 1 through 4, and in the beginning of the first issue, I have what's happened before.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't need to just get the issues prior,
Okay. Yeah. And I do see that you do have like the cover of issue 3 is behind you on your wall too, huh?
Yeah, that's that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit about as well is before we jump into the tiers, I'm really curious. Oh, look at that! Okay, there they are. Huh?
These are my proof copies from the printer.
Okay. All
so
right.
As soon as the campaign is done, these go straight to the printer. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And since you've been doing this for a while, what's your recommendation for maybe independent publishers on what your recommendation is for getting things made? Is that getting books printed?
Well, it depends. It depends where you're at, right? So we're all over the place as far as like where we're at in life, right? So my suggestion, here's the thing. I'm using POD at the moment. It's very expensive to print them. I mean, we're talking $2-3 a book just for me to get it printed. That's why the cost is so high on the Kickstarter, because individual books are just so expensive.
Right.
And I have to try to pull a little bit of profit that I'm going to give over to my artists. And that's the other thing. Whatever money I get in, it goes straight to my artists. I don't keep any of it. It just goes straight to them, So yeah, so I got a day job. I work that. That's my life. And then, but the comics, that's the fun part. So that goes straight to the artists. So.
Right.
And for a long time I was self-financing. So, but once I got into Kickstarter, now I'm like 95% there. I'm still financing a little bit, but I got most of it taken care of by Kickstarter, which is cool. But as far as where you would print, Kablam is a resource. There's a whole bunch of Comics Wellspring. There's a whole slew of them. You just got to find the one that works with you.
Right.
That's the thing. You're just gonna have to find a work. And it also depends on where you're at. And what I mean by that is, do you want to do offset? Because you can get the books I'm paying $3 for or $2 for. If you go offset and print 2,000-3,000 of them, you might be able to get them for $1. You might be able to get them for 75 cents.
Right.
So it just depends on the printer you come across and how you're going to do it. But the thing I always caution everyone, if you're going to buy 3,000 books, the first thing you should be thinking about is how are you going to sell those books? How are you going to get rid of those books? Because you don't want to keep them. Okay, I mean, it's very nice to have them for about 10 minutes, but you want to move them out of your house or your garage or your storage space as quickly as possible, because I back in the day when I first started, like Dreamweavers and Tall Tales and Reaver, that we had to do offset. We didn't have POD, so I had to print 3,000 book print runs. In some cases, 5,000 book print runs, right? And you end up with cases and cases. I mean, you can sleep on this stuff. You can make a bed. You can build a small house with some of these books if you really determined to. So yeah, the key thing is how you're going to get rid of them, right? So you have to make that decision as to are you going to distribute through Diamond? Are you going to distribute through Liberty Entertainment, which is a new distributor that distributes indies? Are you going to self-distribute? You're going to go to shows? I mean, there are guys who order 2,000 copies and they just go to shows. They're selling 100 copies per show, per show, 200 or 300 copies per show. And they just keep it, and that's how they do. They do a bunch of shows and they get rid of them. But you got to make that decision as to how that's best going to suit you. That's the thing. Do you have the storage space, right? Are you one of these people that is fortunate and you live in this place where, you have this giant place where you can put all this stuff in?
Right. But nowadays, there's not much of a price difference, if I recall correctly, between color and black and white, or black and white it's still a better deal?
Between in POD, there's still not a big difference. There's not. It's maybe like 50, 75 cents per book difference,
Right.
which, you know, I mean, depends on. I mean, when you're talking about 100 books, it's not a big difference.
Right.
You're talking about 1,000 books, 2,000 books, 3,000 books, then it becomes a difference, right? Because then you're talking about, you know, maybe a couple of, maybe hundreds of dollars and maybe possibly thousands of dollars. Oh, but yeah, PLD is not that big of a difference. The only big difference is if, you know, like I said, I'm hiring an artist. So if, you know, I can hire an artist to do pen and ink and gray tones, right? And that's one fee. And then I have to hire a color artist to go in and color it. So that's another fee. So yeah, that's where you have to also make another decision, because those numbers are just hard. They're just like, you know, I say, okay, I'm paying X amount for my page rate, and you just got to pay it, and that's what it is. So, you know, the only good thing is that that's usually a one-time fee. If, you know, sometimes you have agreements where you come to a certain point where you make enough money, you're like, okay, now I can start paying a royalty to these guys. But you still have to make back whatever you put in initially. And that's,
so, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and where would you recommend comic book writers to find artists?
There's a couple of places. I find all mine on DeviantArt.
Okay.
So I've been on there a lot, and you know, I've been on there forever. You know, but I tell everybody, test them out. You know, what I do is I usually get a pinup from an artist. I'll say, okay, let's do a pinup. Let's see how they can draw the character, especially with Oswald. Oswald, you know, it's funny, like, you know, I get these guys from Marvel and DC, right? And I'm like, you know, they can draw, like, here's the thing. A person who can draw a big, beefy man, right? Could draw Superman, could draw Thor, could draw Spider-Man, could draw the Hulk, right? But then you ask them to draw a mouse, and they're like, well, what the hell? That's crazy. That's crazy go nuts, you know? So, yeah, that's the thing, especially when it's, it's the animated features on them. They're like, they start to freak out a little bit. They're like, oh, what is that? You know? So I've gotten excellent art. I've gotten bad pieces from excellent artists. Okay? So it's like, you know, everything else is fantastic. And then you see Oswald, you see his face. It's just like, oh, that doesn't work, you know? But I've gotten some excellent pieces from some excellent artists who are just different. It's just, you know, the mindset is different, you know? Right. That's the difference between, I would imagine, I mean, I like to say illustrators and artists. Like, every artist has a bit of an illustrator in them. Every illustrator has a bit of an artist in them. So it's yin and yang, right? But, you know, but you have your dominant ends. You know, you have guys or guys and gals who can, you show them a street and they can draw that street exactly the way, you know, like line for line. They're like, boom, there's your street. Right. And then you're like, all right, draw me this figure of this goofy looking person. And like, I can't really do that, right? You have some reference, right? And then you have some people who you just tell them the same exact thing, and they're like, the street, they'll give you some abstract thing for it, but that person, though, look incredible. They're like, there you go, there's your person, and they'll look all crazy and goofy, and, you know, and they look fantastic. It's the difference between, I don't know, someone like Mike Mignola, right? Or John Byrne even. Well, I think John Byrne floats between the two. And I don't know, pick a model. What's funny is that there's so many great artists today. Like when I was a kid, right, in the 80s and even the early 90s, you could keep track of most of the artists, right? So you had John Byrne and George Perez and Mignola and Adams and the two Buscema brothers and you know, John Romita Jr., Frank Miller, and so on and so forth. You keep track of them. Right. Today, it's like 160 books. I was like, how do you keep track of everybody who's working on?
There's so many books, yeah.
Exactly. You know, and it's, and the thing is, you know, regardless of what you think of, you know, how well they're written or not written or whatever, typically you have on most of them really good artists, right? And yeah, it's just trying to keep track of them. You know, it's just like who's who. But yeah, but in that particular instance, you know, you find yourself someone who's an illustrator, and then you just like, okay, they're not going to work on this type of project. So you have to be very particular about who you find. When you find an artist, say, listen, draw this. And then if you really like their stuff, you're like, okay, write a very short story, 2-3 pages. Okay. Maybe 4. You understand? Very short. Because what you're going to want to get is the way they tell a story, their sense of timing, so on and so forth. And you give them that story, and then you see how they capture information. You know, like you see, like, you know, are they willing to communicate with you? Are they going to ask you questions?
Right.
Right? Are they going to, you know, because I'll sometimes send an artist very brief, very brief descriptions to see if they'll ask me questions. You know, because I want to see is this person going to communicate with me, or is this person just going to just go crazy and do their own thing? Sometimes you get both. Sometimes it works. You have some people who come in and be like, oh, okay, that's fine, and they'll just draw whatever, you know, comes to them, and they give it to you, and then you work from the layouts they send you. Like, oh, okay, this guy will work, because you have some artists that you're gonna have to communicate a lot with,
right?
And then you have some you like with my current artist Jade. Well, she's my current artist. She's the main artist on the series. Jade Gonzalez. She's the one that's been putting up with me forever. She's incredible. The only person who's been putting up with me longer is Daphne. So you know, it's like, you know, a saint and goddess. You know, so so but with Jade, I hand her a script. She'll read it, and she'll send me this list, and she'll be like, okay, here are all my questions, right? And then I'll answer all the questions in the story, and then at that point, I don't have communication. Is just like she's just sending me pages. She doesn't even send me layouts anymore. She just sends me the pages. You know, she's like, here's your pages. I'm like, fine, and they work out, you know, fine, because she knows what she's doing. We've done, like I said, 1,200 pages ago, 1,300 pages ago. So yeah, we're at a point where it's just like, oh, it's very easy, very smooth.
Yeah.
So I would suggest DeviantArt, and another one is ArtStation. I've never used it, but I've looked through it. A lot of fantastic artists in there. So those are the two places I would suggest.
Those are the two places.
Also, Facebook, they have a number of groups that are like matching writers and matching artists together. I haven't used them, but they do look like they're effective.
Okay. All right. Cool. Do we have? So let's pull back in. Let's chat about a bit about your tiers. So you have on here. I like this. This is kind of like your intro here. Your big sample taste.
Yeah. I did that just recently. I was like, okay, let me put this up just to give everybody an idea of what's going on. So what we have here is the two on the left. So that's number 3 and number 4 covers to we were just passing through.
Right.
So those are available. We also have issues 7 and 8 cover. These are alternative covers.
Okay.
To Passing Queens and Making Homes. So these are 2 covers. If anyone's looking to maybe get into it and do a catch-up, I have a add-on tier where you can buy the first 6 issues. Okay. So it's an add-on tier. So if you want to do that, that's available to you. Okay. Just below that on the left-hand side, that's a little package that I have. All right, I can show it to you on screen. So it's these things. It's a coaster.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's a coaster, and then I have these 2 stickers.
Okay.
And I have this little acrylic pin.
Oh,
right.
Wow, awesome.
So this little acrylic pin. That's for the first 41 physical backers. Okay. Now, if you look at the campaign, it says I have like 56 backers. Now, the thing is there's a bunch of them are PDFs. So I still think there are 10 or 12 of these still available. So it's for the first 41 backers. And then, yeah.
Okay.
But we do sell a lot of PDFs, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, I love my PDFs.
Yeah.
And then if you see next to it, there's this guy. And this is that's a hard enamel pin, or a cloisonné, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So that's a hard enamel pin, and that's it's available as an add-on, and there's also a couple of levels where it's available as well.
Okay.
And then we hit stretch goals.
Nice.
Yeah, and what we're doing is I'm doing a 9-card set. So it's trading cards, and there's 9 of them. So these are the first 3. It was unlocked at 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. The next one's at 3,000, and it may go over 2 campaigns. We'll see. But on the back of them is going to be an image where it's going to be like a puzzle image. So you put the cards together.
Oh, cool.
And you have a full image. So if you get one of those 9-panel sheets, and you put them in, right, on the back you'll have one complete image.
Oh, that's awesome. So where'd you come up with that idea? Did you see that someplace else?
Yeah. I've seen it a couple other places. Yeah. So I just thought I was like, oh, that's cool. So I'll try that out.
So we're looking at you got your pledge level here is like you got your big sample test, then you got your $8, which is your PDF level 1, number 1 here, which is issues where you get 3 through 4, and also passing queens and making homes 8 and 9.
Right.
Correct. Okay. All right. And then you have your for the other amount you can. So this is basically for the ones who already have the other issues, basically, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then, there's catch-up levels.
Right. And so this would be one of those catch-up levels here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Issues 1 through 4, and also the passing queens. That's a great deal, because then you got all of a sudden for $16 you're getting 12 issues.
Right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have an even better deal further up.
Okay. What, this one here?
Which one is that?
The $20 one. Oh, those are the alternative covers.
Yeah, those are the alternative covers. No, if you keep going, this is a PDF deal. If you keep going.
All right, PDF deal.
Yeah, it's a
alternate PDF. Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that has a lot of
basically everything, right?
Yeah.
For Oswald Chronicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you'll get Passing Queens and Making Homes. We were just passing through My Time with Clive. It Came Seeking Me, which is a one-shot, and Fallen Gods, plus the 2 hardcover. Well, they're PDFs of the 2 graphic novels that I released. Mm-hmm. That has On the Wings of Deidre and just forgetting the name of that story. and then there's also like 3 chapbooks, which are prose, and then like 3 or 4 other, or 2 or 3 other prose books as well.
Wow.
So you're getting a lot of prose, a lot of comics.
Right.
So you're probably getting about 600-700 pages worth of comics. You're probably getting just as many prose pages.
Right.
So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you also have this is the limited edition hard copies of. Okay.
Yeah, that's 1 through 4.
Okay. And that's kind of the catch up, because in a way, if somebody's already.
Right.
If somebody else already. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you have on here the alternative covers to. We were just passing through.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that has a pin in there.
Available. That's awesome, man. Yeah, and then you have just passing through PDFs, and you have also and all the hardcover versions come with PDFs as well, correct?
Oh yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody, if you get the physical books, you get a PDF as well.
Right. Okay. And then you have here for $55 you get your limited edition hard copies of just passing through 3 and 4. Limited edition, and then you have the pro story under there.
Right. There's like three prose books that I release.
So, and how does that look? Is it like a floppy, or is that like an?
No. They're actually prose. They're like little novels.
Really?
Yeah. They'll give me a second. I'm gonna disappear for a second.
Curious to see that.
So they're like this.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, they're it's just prose,
right,
with some illustrations.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see.
And would these fit? And these prose, are they in which life of Oswald? Are they?
Oh, they. All right, I didn't even get to explain that part of it. Right, so, like that's one of the others. This is done by a buddy of mine, Mike DeBush. Excellent artist.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of stuff. That's Matt Lunsford.
Wow.
So some of it is some of it's in his first life. Some of it's either his first life or in dreams. So it's one or the other.
Okay.
So what happened was with this series, when I had first started it, I didn't start in the beginning like a smart person.
Right.
Because I'm. As they refer to as galaxy brained. So I started in the middle. And what I would do is, here's the thing. Like, I didn't realize I was writing such a big story, right? So what I would do is like, I was like, all right, I started figuring things out. I was like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I was like, how am I going to do this without knowing this? I know what I'll do. I'll write a story at this point in his life. Okay? So I would skip to the future, write that story, and that would give me the information that I would need to write a prior story. Okay? So yeah, so I work strange. So it's so I write that, that'll give me this, and I'll write this, and this will give me this over all the way back here.
Right.
Yeah. So I jump all over his timeline. So a friend of mine, what did he call me? He said I was the master of I forgot what he said, but it was something about jumping all over time. It was very this was very strange because I would do stuff with him in dream because I was trying to figure out his life, and at this point I have it pretty much all figured out. So I'm working on the last story of his third life. So I'm literally working on the last story of Oswald. Now, but the thing is, though, is even when I'm done with that, I have 2 or 3 other stories I'm going to have to write that's somewhere in the middle to help flesh it out. But then at that point, I'm pretty much done with the writing. Then it's just a matter of just, transcribing and editing and doing all that stuff. Because I don't know what type of process you go through, but his third life, I've written, I don't know, probably about 13 stories, 12 stories at this point, right? And what I'll do is I'll write them in long form. I'll transcribe them. And then long form, like before I get to transcribing it, it might be several months, right? So I'll get to it. I'll transcribe it. I'll do some edits at that point because that's just how the brain works, right? You'll do some edits, and then I'll print it out, put a binder clip on it, set it on the side, transcribe a bunch of it, write live life, do all that stuff. Yeah. 4 or 5 months later, I'll pull it out and I'll start doing a full edit on it, and I'll just go through it, do whatever I have to do. And the process could take a couple years. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's the one thing that I find that's fantastic about working on your own stuff. You can take as much time as you need.
Right.
And the thing is like I'm never done editing. Right. I'll even the stories that are published, I'll be flipping through stuff, and I'll be like, ooh, that's not right, and I'll correct it, and I'll go back to the digital files, and this printing, this one's not, but the next printing will be fixed. So yes, so that's how we go about it. So
that's exciting because I'm looking at it too. Is like, so your ultimate, you're right here at the ultimate book level. This is basically anybody who likes a hard copy of everything Oswald is right here.
Yeah, you should see when I mail that sucker out. It's a pile of books about that high.
And you're looking at, and you have these, at least 2 backers on this so far. That means that these are new readers probably.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, what happened was in the prior Oswald campaign for this, it was for issues 1 and 2.
Right.
Someone had contacted me and they said, "Hey, I remember you having a ultimate book level, right, in prior campaigns." And I was like, "Yeah, I got it." I was like, and the reason I didn't put it up is because nobody was biting on it. I had 2 or 3 campaigns, nobody bid on it, and I was just, it's just eating up space. So I didn't bother putting it up. So this person had contacted me. I said, okay. So I put it up, and I put it up for 3. I said, okay, let me open it up just 3 slots. All 3 slots were sold. Wow. And I was like, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, whoa, okay. So I put it on this one. I got 2 backers. That's fantastic. I opened it up for 5. If I score another one, I'll be happy. Yeah.
But even I would say, like, this is, all of these books combined is by far probably one of the best deals I've seen on a Kickstarter when you add it all together from the money wise.
Yeah, there's a lot of books there.
Right.
And then and then I like to throw in all my extra tchotchkes. I have bookmarks and cards and all sorts of other stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. This is great. Well, you know what? So I gotta say, JD, this is exciting. I'm excited for you. I'm excited about this.
Thank you.
And I'm really, as we're saying at the beginning of the year, I first discovered you through Tall Tales, and now being able to discover Oswald, it's fun to see these how these coming together. So I'll have to get you back on the show when for your next Kickstarter. You've done 22 so far, so I think it's a certain day you're going to be doing more. So
yeah, there's another 22 coming. Another 22 coming, and that's the thing that we cycle through them very quickly, or at least I try to, because I have a lot of material. Because all right, so we'll finish this one when it finishes. As soon as it locks, I'll get the number of books I need to print. I'll send it off to the printer. That'll get back to me within 2 weeks, and then once I get them and I get paid from Kickstarter, I start shipping out books.
Perfect.
And and then we'll have another campaign, right on the heels.
Right, excellent. So, well, thank you very much, JD. It's been a genuine pleasure chatting with you. I enjoyed it.
All right, thank you, Barney. I really appreciate it. And listen, anybody and everybody. I also have, listen, here's one thing. I'm selling all this stuff, and it's fantastic, right? But there's also the OswaldChronicles.com, which has a lot of these stories in serialized form. So if you want, it's broken up, it's broken up in blocks. Yeah, there you go. Well, this one actually has a full page on it, which is kind of rare. But you can read the stories on there as well. So, it's available to you, I just want, it's funny because this is a passion project for me. Right. I don't write it for money. It would be nice if I could make some, but, that's not really the reason I do it for, well, like I said, whatever funds I generate, I give to the artists, just to continue the project. So, so if you would just want to read it, go to the website and go read it. It would be nice if you want to buy some physical stuff, get that too.
Right, it's as you say, at the OswaldChronicles.com. And,
yes.
And they're able to also see everything together is also on DreamweaverPress.com
yes.
as well. So
you'll find the link for Tall Tales online there, and there's a link there on the Oswald Chronicles for Tall Tales as well.
Yeah, perfect. Right. Well, thank you very much, JD, and
thank you, Brian.
Congratulations on your Kickstarter, and looking forward to talking to you again.
Yep, it'll be a blast. Hopefully I have more news. What's funny is all the really cool stuff is in front of me. It's on my desk, so I can see it while I write. It's my H.P. Lovecraft statue and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I have in front of me. I just basically have the all the egg carton soundboard stuff in front of me. So
oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I have like all these toys and things. I'm like, hold on. I'm gonna do something I shouldn't do.
Oh yeah, here we go. Exclusive. Wow. Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, that's my H.P. Lovecraft. I have him there so that he can stare at me and remind me to write. So yeah, he's always there. He's always there, like shaming me, like why are you just.